Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Medicare Space live show here in San Antonio, Texas. And who do we have to my right over here?
Sylvia Toscano. Good morning, folks. How's everybody doing?
And Adriana Rodriguez. Good morning.
Adriana always starts with like, and Adriana Rodriguez.
I'm still drinking my coffee.
And as you can see, folks, our screen looks a little different today because we have a very special guest on. I'm super excited. We have Zachary Espericueta.
Ooh,
I'm
so proud of. Yeah, I was going to say I'm so proud of you for pronouncing that last name so beautifully.
I practiced it a couple of times in the mirror this morning. Zachary Espericueta.
And then Carmenza walks in and she's like, what are you doing?
What am I doing? Zachary is one of our dear friends. He's become somebody that we're partnering and collaborating with on a few things. He is the host of the SAPodnetwork, correct? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, the San Antonio Podcast Network. I try to shorten it a little bit because I know that's a mouthful sometimes. And I just kind of say the SA Podcast Network. And of course, that looks better like on a handle for Twitter or so. But I host that with Erica Perez.
Nice. So Erica Perez, is she your new? Because I've seen, because it was you, and then now it's her. You guys, she's the co-host.
Right.
You guys are doing that together.
Yeah, I started the podcast last year, and I don't know if you want to go into that later on, but I started the podcast last year. I had another co-host at the time who was helping me, and we did that for a while, about 40 episodes, and then I went solo for a few months up until November, up until this last recent November, and that's when I brought Erica on. So
awesome. So what made you get into that? Because I know we were chit-chatting, and we kind of went over like why we like it, but what made you get into specifically San Antonio? The San Antonio, like going over the, because we're kind of aligned. So I think that's why we work well together, because we both are like, okay, community and getting resources out there. So what made you start that podcast?
Yeah, well, the thing is, and I know you didn't mention it there, but I am an independent agent, and I know more recently been working on the Medicare side, but before, just working with retirement accounts, annuities. I'm an insurance agent, so that's the kind of products I work with, and I picked the wrong or the right time, however you want to see it. I'm more of a glass half full person, so I'll say it's the right time. But I had left my corporate job working at Frost Bank downtown in December of 2019. So, of course, for the listeners or viewers, you remember what happened 3 months later. We got hit with COVID.
Yes.
And I had just started like being independent and being self-employed. And I was trying to build up my client base. And what a time, right? Like to start all that. And I was trying to find a way to get my voice out there. And so I was a big podcast person already. So I said, why not podcasting? Why not just like get my voice out there? But I didn't know what I wanted to talk about, because I can sit here and talk about financials all day long, just like I'm sure you could sit there and talk about Medicare all day long. But as much of an expert you are, that it can be a little boring sometimes, and somebody doesn't want to listen to that.
Never.
And that's why you want to make it more fun. And I was like, what about a San Antonio podcast? Like, why not focus on the community and the small business and the entrepreneurs? And San Antonio has been on the up and up for like a decade now, if not a little longer. And so it's just been so much fun to meet these business owners, meet these community leaders, and talk to them. And so that's what kind of started it all.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, us too. I mean, of course, you're in the insurance industry. We're in the insurance industry, but we find a true calling here to really help the community in some type of way. Maybe they don't like to hear our voice. I don't know. Cause we sound like some old man. He's like, you guys sound like magpies back there. What are those birds? Well, this was a long time ago when I used to work at my old job. And they're like, you girls are like magpies. Sometimes I feel like that when we're just laughing. And it's funny because our little motto, it's like we talk a little bit of insurance and a lot of everything else. But I'm glad you're on, because we're always trying to find people specifically for the Medicare Space live show, is that people not only that are in the community, but that have expertise in certain areas where we might have a little bit of knowledge, but we're not, niched in that field where we can give enough information and kind of provide education to our listeners. So with that being said, Zach, for those of you that are listening that are avid listeners of the SAPodnetwork, you probably don't know this little tidbit about him because he probably doesn't talk about it a lot, right? You probably
I really don't. I really don't. I run like a mini ad, a commercial, if you will, in between some of the like little breaks in the segments. And I mentioned that I'm an advisor and that I can help people with retirement, retirement planning, insurance, things of that sort, and of course now Medicare. But yeah, I don't like. I've only done one episode where I actually focused on that part of my life and that part of my career. I really don't talk about it a lot. So yeah, and it's honestly by design that I did that. I want to focus this podcast on San Antonio. I had to give a plug there for myself in with that episode, but yeah, I really don't talk about it a lot, and maybe I will. I really do think, and maybe it's what is it called, imposter syndrome, where I feel like I'm not that person, but maybe I will one day have like an actual financial podcast or like some kind of annuity podcast. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, you're going to talk a little bit about that today because our list. So with the Medicare stuff, we primarily deal with people that are normally like 65 and up or turning 65, but you're trying to get them before that because it's always good to talk about retirement. There's never a wrong time, right? And you, because what interests me is that you were telling me that you were working a lot with the school districts and explaining like 403Bs and things like that to them. Can you explain exactly what a 403B is or shed some light on those types of things for us? Because as much as we're in insurance and we know Medicare, we know, a little bit about life insurance, on the retirement side, we don't try to get too much into it, even though it's in line with what we do, but we want to get it from somebody that's actually in the trenches every day like you. So can you explain what those are to us?
Sure. Yeah. So first off, kind of backing up a little bit, the reason I work a lot in the school districts is because I come from a family of educators. And I really mean that. I don't even just say that. Like, it's not just one parent worked in education. Like my whole family, I swear, like I'm the odd duckling or the ugly duckling that didn't go into education because my mom was a teacher. And even though she's retired and she's actually taking her pension from teaching, she's doing tutoring now for Northside. My dad works in San Marcos Consolidated ISD. For years, he worked in Northside. I think 3 of my grandparents worked in education, different levels. My mom, even after leaving Northside, she taught in the prison system. She taught like a life skills and a GED course in the prison system. Wow. And then my brother just graduated from UTSA and he's going to become a math teacher. So it's like I'm literally, and then one of my grandmas was a nurse at a longtime nurse at an elementary school in Beeville, Texas. So it's literally like just me who didn't go into education. But I do work with educators. And that's the reason why, is because I know how important it is for them to save for retirement. And really anybody, one of the things I talk about in my presentations is that retirement income gap that that most people are going to have, if not the majority of people. No matter if you work in the private sector or the public sector, you're going to have some kind of income gap, whether you're taking Social Security or you have a pension. And what I do when I'm talking to these teachers is I explain how their pension works. I'm talking about TRS. So if there's any viewers or listeners, I'm talking about TRS. And without going into details about it, TRS is going to pay a portion of the salary that they made over the years of their career. But it's never going to pay that full amount. It can get really close. And the actual number is like, I think 43 years. If you work 43 years in education, the TRS pension will pay 100%, but not even 100% of what they're making the day they retire, 100% of their 5 highest earning years average. So it's still not even technically 100%. So what that means for the teachers is they need to save for retirement, right? They need to close that gap. And if they want to live a balanced lifestyle in retirement. And so that's where the 403B comes in hand. And people hear that 403B, right? Just like a 401k or an IRA. And people, they get them mixed up a lot. I've heard people say 401B, 403k, 401B. And I've heard different kinds of, iterations of the different plans, but that's exactly what those mean. Those are just retirement plans. Like literally in the code of the IRS, those are just plans. Those are not investment vehicles or anything of the sort. They are just retirement plans. And a 403B is exclusive to nonprofit organizations, mostly like education, like teachers. Sometimes it's religious organizations, sometimes it's hospitals. But most of the time, when somebody's talking about a 403B, we're talking about something for an educator. And like I said, it is a retirement account for them. It's a tax sheltered retirement account, depending on, what kind of tax advantages it has. But that's all it is. It's a retirement plan.
Yeah, that's good, because even for us, I've been doing insurance since '05, and I hear these things, but I'm like, it's funny when you're in kind of the insurance world, people think you know everything about everything. I'm like, well, I know a little bit. I know just enough to get me in
I tell
trouble.
everybody you know everything.
And not even just that, but just the financial world in general. You don't know how many questions I've got about like cryptocurrency. And I'm like, I never talk about cryptocurrency on my Twitter, my Facebook, or anything, but they just know, since, hey, Zach works with retirement accounts, he must know something about cryptocurrency.
That is so funny.
It really is. People just think like, okay, you're the go-to person for everything financial.
Well, that means that you're doing something right, because when people see you as a resource for information, that means they see you as the expert. So it could be like, we'll have people asking us what cable service is the best, or like, oh, Mija, what do I do? Should I cancel my cable and go with, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm sure they got senior discounts, but I don't know. But that's a good sign when they start asking about other things, because they look to you as the expert, which is what you want. You want to be that resource for them, because as you know, there's not a lot of people out there that always give the best right information out there.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Do you run into a lot of that where you see people that did something early on where they're like, why did I do that? Why did I buy this? Or why did I get into that? I have no clue what I have. Do you run into that a lot?
I see different versions of that. It's funny that you kind of touched on, there's people in financial services industry that don't always work in the best ethical way, I guess you could say. And I run into a lot of clients and consumers who have had that in their past. And what I mean by that is, I come across clients in school districts and I'm sitting down with them to do a financial review. We're going over their finances, and they have some kind of retirement account. But the reason they're coming to me, because, you're probably thinking, well, why don't they go to their advisor? They already have a 403B. But they can't get a hold of them, or they don't even know what company it's with. They don't even know what they have. And to me, that's a huge red flag. Like, not only that you don't know what you have or where it is, but you don't know who to contact for it. And I think that's completely wrong. And I get this from my previous job when I worked at Frost Bank, because they're all about treating the customer right, treating the customer like family. And I really try to build that relationship with my clients, because I don't want my client going to some other advisor, right? I want to be their resource. And so I have seen those wrongdoings by previous advisors. And honestly, what it is some of these folks come into the industry and they're just trying to get to the next position, or they're just trying to write up as many people as they can, and then get out of there. And then they don't take the time to build that relationship with the client. And that's not right, because I want to be there for the client. So I see that a lot. But really, like I said, what's concerning for me is coming across the clients who they haven't had the education part. They don't know what they're doing. And so that's why I know in my own practice, I've kind of implemented that, like the education piece. And honestly, I probably take way too much time in my first and second meetings with clients, but I do it because I try to explain everything to them in a way they can understand, because I don't want them feeling like that. I feel like they have to know what they're doing and understand why they're doing it, or else they might quit or take their money out or make some financial mistakes down the road.
Right.
Yeah. Do y'all have any questions for Zach on like the 403Bs or anything?
So the 403Bs would be, for people who are listening, would be equivalent to what a 401k is, or somebody who's like working for maybe a corporate company.
It's similar. And you are right, Adriana, that 401k is usually like with a private company. The difference is, there's a few key differences, honestly, because a lot of teachers I speak to, a lot of times they have a spouse who has a 401k at their job in the private sector, and they're under the misconception that their 403b, there's going to be some kind of employer match. And 9 times out of 10, if not more, if not like 9.9 times out of 10, there is no employer match with a 403b like there is in a 401k. So if you know someone that has a 401k, or they talk about their 401k, most likely, not all the time, they're receiving some kind of match. That's not the case with a 403b.
Yeah. So my husband he started with a new company. So that I was just actually talking to Victoria about it yesterday. And this year was his first full year. I think obviously there's a waiting period before they ask you if you would like to enroll into the 401k. program. And he hadn't had one in his previous job, and he had been there a long time. And so this time it was like they automatically enrolled him, and they were like, if you don't want it, then you have to disenroll. And I told him, just keep it, because the money's going to come out. You're not even going to think about it. And they match a really good amount. They do a really high percentage as far as matching what he contributes. So I'm like, hey, another 10 years, you have a nice little nest egg there.
Right. And you can't beat the match. That's literally free money.
Exactly.
Yeah. And going back to that kind of, because the 403B, so we should see it more like a tax sheltered type situation, right? Because what would be the benefit other than them saving their money? And obviously it's probably growing based on, is it based on like the S&P, or what's that based on? Or is it just going into an account and it earns a guaranteed interest, or what would that?
And that's a great question. And I want to go back to the tax sheltered part, just because I do get a lot of questions, especially early on in meetings, like, well, why don't I just put this in a savings account? Or, the money market at my bank has a pretty good interest rate, which I haven't heard that lately because interest rates are like historically low. But back when I was at Frost Bank, interest rates were decently high. But even then, when you put your money into an account, like at the bank, for example, that is not tax sheltered, which for the average person to understand, all that means is if you make more than $10 of interest, you owe money to Uncle Sam. You get what I call a love letter from the IRS, and the IRS is asking you to pay taxes.
I've got love novels.
Oh, I love those letters.
They're asking you to pay taxes on the interest that you earned. So that's what's called, that's not tax sheltered. So a retirement account is tax sheltered because as you grow interest over the years, okay, you don't pay taxes on that interest. Now, you are going to pay taxes at some point, right? We all have to pay Uncle Sam at some point. And we can get into traditional or Roth. You either pay taxes as you go, or, on the distribution side of things, but you don't pay taxes on the interest that you earn like you would in a CD or a bank savings or a bank money market. So that's the tax sheltered part. So hopefully that kind of answers your question with that. But I know you also mentioned like how you earn interest, right? Is it tied to the S&P or things like that? Now, I know we kind of have brought up 401ks. I'm going to mostly talk about 403bs. With 401ks, they work a little different. Again, that's with the private sector. Since I'm more of an expert in the 403b realm, I'll talk about 403bs. But even then, keep in mind what I said in the beginning. A 403b is just a plan. And this is how I explain it to clients. It is just a plan. So when I'm talking about these different plans, like a 403b or maybe an IRA, once we figure out that a 403b is the right plan for the client, then we can talk about financial vehicles, which means how it's going to earn interest, right? Because that's what they want to know. How's my money going to earn interest? I said, okay, well, we figured out the 403b plan is right for you, Mr. or Mrs. Client, right? Now, what financial vehicle are you looking for? So when I go over that, we talk about like risk, like what kind of risk are they looking for, right? And I break it down. You can get real intricate and real detailed with this, but the way I break it down for clients is like, do you want low risk, medium risk, or high risk? They say, what is that? All right, well, low risk is going to be at the bank, right? You're shooting for 1%, right? Usually you're going to get, nowadays, you're probably like 0.5%. Maybe, but your floor is 0. Are you going to lose money at the bank? No, not unless you have an overdraft. Okay. But you're not going to lose money at the bank. Okay. But you're shooting for that 1%. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have your high risk. And this is going to be your money like in mutual funds or in the stock market, directly in the stock market, which I am not licensed to give that kind of advice. That is not my realm of expertise. But most people can generally understand that in the market, when their money's in mutual funds, which they usually don't understand, there's unlimited growth and unlimited loss, right? The arrow goes up and the arrow goes down. We don't know. Historically, in most indexes, right? And in the US stock market, historically, it has gone up over time, but we just don't know when it's going to go up or down. But with the 403bs I use, since they are insurance-based products, the way they earn interest is they are indirectly tied to some of those indexes in the market. And so they're called fixed index annuities is what they are. And basically you earn interest based on the growth of some of these indexes. I know that gets a little confusing. I don't know how detailed you want to get with that, but that's how they earn interest. But really with these kind of like insurance-based retirement accounts, I mean, you're shooting for like 4 to 6%, over time. On average.
Oh, okay. Now, can people only in so you said this is specifically for nonprofit organizations, right? The 403Bs?
Right.
Like
Like public
churches.
education, churches, hospitals. Right.
So we can't go get one.
No.
Okay.
Hey, I'm using Lorenzo's 401k.
401k.
I'm banking on that.
This is good because, as long as I've been doing this, like I know I should take more time to study these things, but I mean, I'm so focused on Medicare and other things that I can't be the jack of all trades, right? So that's why we bring experts like you in, because you explain things so well. So I hate to say that you're not a teacher, because you are.
I was going to say that you are an educator. You are still educating
You
people.
are
a little bit.
When I was going to, well, I started in community college and I didn't finish college, but when I went and you do that little test, it says, "Oh, you're going to be a nurse or a teacher." I said, screw this. I don't like blood and I don't want to be around a bunch of kids. But then turns out I'm kind of like a nurse and a teacher. I teach and I nurture my agents.
I like that. A lot
And
of
your clients
a lot
too.
of
And my
just gotta
clients and my
clean up.
clients. I feel like I nurture my agents more than my clients. But so the way you're talking, you explain it very, very well where people can actually understand. So when people go look at this, back on like YouTube, the ones that are not live. And by the way, for those of you that are watching in live, thank you so much. If you just came in, Zachary Espericueta is here. He is the host of the San Antonio Podcast Network, but little do you guys know, he's actually a retirement special as well. We were talking about 403Bs and how those work. And I'm learning. How are you guys learning something? This is good because for us too, especially when we do run into a lot of people that are on TRS.
Yes.
Do you run into the situation, Zach, where when like we deal with a lot more with TRS when they're already looking to like, okay, let me look at my plan. Should I stay on TRS health plan or should I leave? Do you run into a lot where what do they do with that 403B when they retire, or does that stay with them?
It's really up to the client and what they want to do. And honestly, there's a broader conversation to have with that, just because, when we're younger, when we're in our working years, we're focused on think of a mountain, right? And you've probably seen this little illustration, but we're trying to accumulate. We're going up the mountain. We're trying to accumulate our retirement funds, our money, our savings. And when you think about, and I hate to use this analogy, I sound so corny, but I use it because it makes sense. Like think about climbing a mountain. I don't know if you've ever climbed a mountain, but when they talk about people climbing like Mount Everest, right? Most people, I don't know if you know this, but most people who don't end up finishing the climb, like actually pass away climbing Mount Everest, they die trying to go down the mountain. They don't die going up the mountain. And I use that analogy because most people don't have an issue trying to save money. When it comes to retirement, the people that are putting away for retirement, they're like, yeah, I have a 401k. I might open an IRA, and fine. They just put money in. They put money in. What they fail to plan for, what they fail to do is come up with some kind of income plan. Like, how are they going to take that money out? Yeah. That's great. You have 500,000 saved up in a 403B or 401k. Are you going to take it all out at once? Right? Yeah. Are you going to chunk it? How do you know it's going to last? The number one fear, and this is crazy, the number one fear above dying, literally above dying, when you're in retirement is running out of money.
Right.
That is the number one fear. Yeah. And it's because the people that don't look to an advisor or anything like that, or at least don't plan, they don't have that plan. They don't have those strategies to distribute the money. They don't know, and they're worried that they're going to. So some people take too much and some people don't take enough. Right. And so, I mean, and I do come across that a lot when I'm coming across teachers who are retiring, is like, okay, they get their pension set up. That's great. But they have this 403B sitting there. Like, what are we going to do with it? Yeah. Right. Or how much are we going to take out? And here's the thing, because of 403B, like a 401k, it's tied to your employer. Meaning that once you leave that employer, you're no longer receiving paychecks from them, meaning that you can no longer contribute. So that's another thing, is that most people that retire from teaching don't fully retire at that point in time. They usually go do something else. My mom is a great example. She retired from education. Now she's back in tutoring literally as of this month. But before that, after she left teaching, she just worked like for a call center, but worked from home.
Mm-hmm.
And my point is like, you can't, let's say you don't want to contribute to your retirement account, but you're no longer receiving paychecks from that nonprofit employer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you do with that retirement account? Right. And so that's where a lot of times I come across clients who just leave it there. And usually it's with 401ks, I'll say, rather than 403bs, but clients will leave an employer and leave that retirement account there instead of taking it and doing something with it. So I know that's kind of like related to your question. I know you're mentioning more about, when folks are coming into Medicare age and whether they're leaving the TRS care or not. But usually, like I said, when these teachers are retiring from teaching, it's figuring out what they want to do with that 403b because they can no longer contribute to it. And that's where I can come in as an advisor and kind of give them some options. The beneficial part of me being an independent agent is that, at least I believe that I can give them multiple options in how we can distribute this money.
Yes. Yeah. I remember, I'm not going to say what bank that I used to work for, but I used to work for a bank and they had me on track to be a financial advisor. But I'm like, honestly, I don't think I want to go that route because it was like, I had access to see people's bank accounts and it's like, well, offer these people. And it's like, I don't think they'd be a good fit for that, because they couldn't even get a savings account situated. So I agree when you're independent, you have more vehicles and more plans that you can say, okay, A, B, C, or D. Like which one fits you the best? Just like in Medicare, A or B or C or D, whatever we can do. And it's very, I like it because it's on a needs basis. Like what we do is very needs based. Like when you meet with your clients, you're asking for doctors and medications. On our side, you're asking more for like, what's your situation? What are your money goals? Are you retiring? Things like that. Do you guys have any questions on the 403B part? Because I know you guys run into a lot of people out there. Do you ever run into people that are asking you what to do with it? Or
yes, and I always tell them I'm not an expert. I really don't know anything about it, which is great that we have Zachary on board now because we can send them to him.
Yeah.
And when it comes to finances, it's like, no, I don't want to touch that,
Sylvia gets all nervous, like,
no, I can barely deal with my own.
She's like, give me 1,000. I'll go put it on on the roulette table.
Yeah, that's my stock right there.
Now, do you run into any clients right now on the phone? Because you're more over the phone. Do you run into people asking questions about this stuff to you?
I haven't yet. I think more I'm appreciative of this information because that's kind of what we're going through right now. We just did my husband's policy the other day. So that stuff to us is super important.
Yeah.
And I know we're not spring chicks anymore, but we're still young enough to be able to start it and still build some kind of money there, right? A little something. But yeah, I would say it's super important to learn about those things, first of all, and then really make a plan because for you to just be like, oh, it'll be what it'll be when you get older is it's a little scary.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, no matter what industry you work in, and I explain this to clients whenever they kind of mention to me, oh man, I wish I would have done this earlier, or I should have done more. Man, I wish I wouldn't have made that mistake, blah, blah, blah. I kind of explain to them, it's not your fault. Like, you are an expert in what you do, right? If I'm talking to an elementary school, a third grade teacher, right? You are great at what you do. You are a way better school teacher than I am, right?
Yeah.
Because you went to school for this, you got your certification, you are a great teacher, but you're so busy, understandably so, doing that. Like we can't expect you to be the expert in finances as well. Right. And so it's not your fault because and especially, and I can't speak from experience with this, but especially if that teacher also has children of their own, right? So they're spending 9-10 hours a day at school teaching children. Then they have to go home to their own children, take care of them, cook dinner, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they want to get their, New Year's resolution. They're trying to work out.
Yeah.
Like they don't have any time to set aside for their finances. And it's understandable, right? And that's where having an advisor can be helpful. And you don't have to meet with that person every day, every week, every month. But, every 2 years, every 3 years, it can be helpful just to sit down with someone and kind of say, where am I at? Right? Where's the money at? What am I doing? What's the plan? How's this going to look? Blah, blah, blah. And that can be just taking 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes once a year, every other year, to meet with someone and just kind of look over what you're doing. It can just be so helpful.
Hey, Zach, if they have 30 minutes to watch a show on Netflix, they got 30 minutes.
Oh, they got way more than 30 minutes watching the show on Netflix.
To make this a priority. So I made a promise to myself, and I kept repeating it, because I told Victoria, I said, my husband has a policy through his employer, but we all know when you leave your employer, that policy doesn't follow you, your life insurance policy. So I made a promise. I kept my word. I said, I got to get him another one outside of work. And so I said it where I told Lorenz, I said, we got to do it this week. We have to do it this week. And it's about the important things. So just like life insurance is extremely important, nobody likes to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. Well, so are these investment vehicles, because you're not going to work your whole life.
Right.
Realistically, at some point, you're going to be tired. You'll be older. It gets harder to get employed. And so why are you not thinking about that as well?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, let me ask you, I'm a lot older than these gals here.
What? No way.
And I have a lot of friends that work for companies who have big retirements coming in, and then I have friends.
Send them to me.
And then I have
I'm already running the illustrations.
Then I have friends like myself who were self-employed for years and years that we don't have a huge nest egg. So what do we do? At some point, I've talked to my friends to where we feel like, we've already missed the boat. What do we do now? We've got some savings, we've got some money that we're going to come in, but what do we do? What do you tell people that are over 60 that do have some good income coming in, but they don't have a big retirement? Is there, do you have meetings out there that you can bring these people, 50 and above who, time's running out, that we need help with things like that?
All hope is lost. No, I'm just kidding.
All hope is lost.
No, I'm just kidding.
I was like,
no, and you know what? And I know it's easier said than done. It's very, very simple way of putting it, but it's never too late. Like it happens. I come across people all the time, Sylvia, where someone's 60 years old or they're 55, and and they want to retire, right? But they don't have any kind of retirement account set up, and they're like, what do I do? And they're stressing about it, and they're like, I'm going to be working until I'm 85, and it's like, well, you may, but no, I'm just kidding. But what you do is it doesn't, like, it's not too late. You just start. You do as much as you can. Now, I will say it's going to be much more difficult than starting when you're younger, right? It's not going to be easy, or else everyone would wait till that age. But it's more imperative, like way more imperative and important at that point in your life to be extremely disciplined with your money. And that is not the time in your life to be spending freely and do whatever you want.
Buy your yacht.
Obviously, they got to, that person in that situation got to do that early on in their life, or else they would have had maybe a retirement account. But they got to enjoy it. This is the time to be disciplined, right? And so this is the time to be aggressive. And now when I say aggressive, that can mean two different things. And honestly, I have to clarify this with clients, because aggressive can mean two different things when it comes to retirement accounts. One, it can mean like, do you want to be aggressive like in the market? Or two, do you want to be aggressive? You mean like putting away a lot of money?
Okay.
Right.
Savings.
And most of the time when clients that are older say they want to be aggressive, most of the time they mean they just want to put away a lot of money, because they don't want to take on a lot of risk, because they don't want to put all this money away and then they just lose it right away. Right. Because at any point in time, anything can trigger the market. Right. So they're worried about that.
Yeah.
But honestly, like I said, the simple answer to that is just being as aggressive as you can, putting away the money, budgeting your butt off, and just making sure you're putting those funds away to save something, right?
Yeah.
To save something. And then, once we get to the bridge, once we decide we want to fully retire, we don't want to work anymore, then we can see what's there. And the other thing, I don't want to get too much into this because I am not a huge expert in this. But what I do kind of comfort Sylvia, do you own a home?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I explain to my clients, and this is like a not last resort, but kind of like the last thing we kind of look at, and people, I guess, because in the past it had negative connotation to it, but people fail to realize what they can do, like with the reverse mortgage, for example, unless they want to leave their house to like kids. Some people do want to do that. Most people realize their kids don't even want that house. So, I explained to the client there's been, and I'm bringing this up because there's been a number of clients who I've turned them to some realtors, that if you meet the age requirement and you're not looking to leave that house to someone, I mean, you can set something up like a reverse mortgage, and you paid all that equity into the home. Why not reap the benefits of it? You're not going to leave it to anybody when you pass, and you can actually treat that like a retirement account. It shouldn't be your plan A or your plan B or probably your plan C, but it can be used as a tool.
Well, that's a good point. And that's a whole nother subject that we
whole other subject.
We'll have to probably, but that's again, you're getting that, interesting, because we do run into a lot of people that they make too much income to get qualified for state benefits, right? Right. They don't have any kids. I mean, I used to get clients that'd be like, Mija, I'm just going to leave you everything because I honestly don't have, and I'm not even joking. Like, I'm like, well, no, you must have somebody. You must have like a kid and they're like, no, I don't have. So for those people, that's a great idea. Or like you said, the kids, like, well, or it's kind of like going to be more of a burden than anything. Why do we need, we don't need that, or the taxes or keeping up with all that. So that's a great idea. So if you know anybody that could speak to that, let us know. We'd love to. We'd love to have them on.
And honestly, the reason I bring it up is because, Sylvia, I've come across multiple people in that same exact scenario who they're older in their years. They make really good money, which means they usually live in a home that's worth a decent amount of money. And I've come across some clients that live, they don't have any retirement. They had no retirement account at the time, but they were living in like a $300,000-$400,000 home. And it's paid off, right? Because they had the money to pay it off over the years. And I'm like, look, they don't want to leave it to any kids, or they asked one of their children. And I had one scenario where they asked their children, and they're like, Mom, we don't want this. Like, we don't want this house. They live in their own home, like 3 states away. Like, they don't want the home. All it's going to be is a burden for them to have to sell. So they just said, Mom, use it. And she was able to use it, get a reverse mortgage. And the other thing about reverse mortgages is like people think, and again, I know we're going to leave that to another expert, but people think that like, oh, they're going to take the home away from you before you pass away. Like, no, they amortize, right? Amortize it so that, no, I mean, unless you live past like 120, 120, they're not going to do that. So it's designed like that. But anyways.
I mean, those are good ideas, because I would never thought of that. So that does give some, that. Well, another thing is sell insurance for like 4 years and then get those renewals, and that's some return. Maybe that.
But we have a lot of friends that are self-employed, electricians, plumbers, contractors, which have a great income, beautiful homes, and unfortunately, we've just gone on our lives, and a lot of them don't have any retirement. They have to wait till they really didn't put in a whole lot to Social Security. They were self-employed, so they never picked up any RAs or anything. And so now a lot of them are in their 50s, close friends. And they always ask me, because I sell insurance, and I tell them, I don't know anything about that. I just sell insurance, but we talk about it because on the other side, we have a lot of friends who are getting ready to retire, who have these huge retirement. And so they're looking at them saying, is it too late? I've got friends that are 50s, like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah, that's
never too late.
That was a very good question, Sylvia. Like, because unfortunately, there's the vast majority is probably like that, versus the other side where you have more people that are invested into, they have their investments, they have their 401ks, 403bs, whatever it might be. Yep. I think that's actually the minority. I would think. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Would you think that based on the population of our seniors, that majority of people don't have a retirement, or would you think it's like 50-50?
Or it's getting worse?
I would say the majority don't. And for different reasons. I think some of the reasons are what Sylvia laid out with her question, which is folks that have been self-employed, or maybe they had their own little small business and they just never took the time to save money, or maybe they're always just kind of running month to month with their small business. but then I think the vast majority of that is just folks who were living paycheck to paycheck, and they just never set up a retirement account. And honestly, and this is kind of the somewhat sad part, at least in my opinion, is a lot of those folks could have set up some kind of a retirement account. And it's not that they were so much living paycheck to paycheck, it's that they never felt comfortable or worked up the courage to ask a question to get that retirement account started.
Yeah.
There are retirement accounts out there that you can. The misconception is that people think, and I know this because clients have told me, is they think that you need 1,000, that you need 500, that you need 5,000, they need 25,000, that you need this large lump sum of money to start some kind of retirement account, or you need to be putting away hundreds of dollars a month. And that's just not the case at all. It couldn't be farther from the truth. You can start an account from zero, from scratch. You can start an account, at work a lot of times, like Adriana with your spouse, right? Like you can start that if you just ask the questions, right, to your HR, or you go and maybe there's an advisor, that, you went to high school with, right? And then you see them on your Facebook feed posting all this stuff about financial literacy, like plug for myself right there. But, doing that, I mean, you just have to take, like I said, it goes back to that, what we said earlier, like just taking the 15 minutes to ask a question, right?
Yeah.
How can I get started? And people can get started doing $50 a month, $100 a month, and they can do it. They can do it. It's just, they don't work up the courage to ask a question. They don't know who to ask the question. They feel like they don't even know what questions to ask.
Right.
And because of that, they just never get started. The years go on. We get busy with our lives. We're trying to get to the next holiday. We're trying to get to the next vacation. And next thing you know, you're 65.
Yeah.
So
and time goes by so fast, because we've had this conversation with a couple of my friends in the last couple of years, and it's always the same thing. They're small business owners. We're going to do it. We're going to talk to somebody. And here we are at the end of the year. And I know none of us have spoken to anybody about it.
You have to put your feet to the fire and say, I have to do this. It's one of those things.
You really do. And that's why I don't, early on in my career of doing this independently, I used to feel bad like harping on people or calling on leads, just because I'm like, man, I'm probably bothering them, right? I'm probably annoying them. But I really had to trick my mind. It's not even tricking your mind. It's just telling yourself the truth. You're trying to help these people.
Right.
You're trying to help them. And really they'll understand later on.
Yeah.
Because maybe at that point in time, they may be thinking like, okay, this guy Zach's annoying. Like he's called me 3 times over the last week. He's left me text messages. He's left me voicemails. He's sent me emails. He's flooding my inbox. I have to delete them. It's spam, blah, blah, blah. But then all I'm trying to do is, like you said, put their feet to the fire. Like you need to understand how important it is that you start now. You'll thank yourself later. Your future self will thank yourself later.
Right.
Well, I'm going to plug this. Not plug, but say that I'm going to relate this to kids. With kids, because we have someone in the office, how they're like, oh, I hate when my mom or dad tells me this, or like, oh, they're so annoying. And then like you're 30 and you're like, that's why they were telling me.
Yeah. I'm going through that. I'm going through that right now. I'm like, oh, my dad was right.
Yeah. So you have these moments. So it's the same thing with but you know what, Zach? I think what it is, guys, is that a lot of people, there's 2 things. Like you said, they're scared to ask the question. And another thing is that, what's it going to cost me?
Yes.
Other than putting my own money, this guy's going to really charge me, whatever, right? What's the catch? So I think that's why a lot of people, because the fear of the unknown is like, and a lot of it relates to the money, because I'll be honest, I've been in insurance, but even at that, like I was like, great, what's this going to cost me to even get a consultation with them?
Right.
Or what's this going to cost me? And sometimes, even $20 to scrape up, depending on what time in your life you're in, is a lot of money, So let's talk about that really quickly, because I know we're coming up to 15 more minutes, but I want to really, because I think people that are probably listening right now, whether they're looking into this, and perfect timing because what we want to do, Zach, before we end the show, is we're going to go around the table and we're going to ask each other what our New Year's goals are. At least one.
Oh man,
we're gonna put you on the spot. So start thinking of it.
I'll start thinking of it. But yeah, let me address that, because that's a great question. And that is absolutely a reason why people fail to sit down or don't schedule a meeting, is they're worried that they're going to pay a hefty amount. They're going to empty their pockets just to get some financial advice.
Mhm.
And the thing is that advisors get paid different ways.
Mhm.
And there are different advisors out there that get paid different ways. Not everyone is paid like the lawyer structure, as I like to call it, right? When you go see a lawyer, most of the time it's not pro bono, right?
Mm-mm.
You actually have to pay for that service. And there are advisors out there. Typically, these are advisors that have like their CFP, their sort of, their financial planner.
Mhm.
They've been certified. They've gone through rigorous training. They're like, usually, I like to consider them the cream of the crop. Not that they're all perfect. I'm sure there's some bad apples out there, but those people, you pay to meet with them. Like
Mhm.
those are people you're paying to meet with, and they're going to lay out a plan. Typically, you pay them a flat fee. It's usually anywhere between like $500 to $2,000, but they're going to lay out an entire plan for you. And
Mhm.
honestly, this is my opinion. That's usually when you have a little bit of wealth to yourself, right? And you need
Mhm.
that planning, because they're going to help you with your estate planning. They're going to help you with retirement accounts. They're going to help you with budgeting. They're going to help you with leaving, an inheritance. They're going to help you with everything A to Z when it comes to financials. That's why you're paying them that flat fee. Then there's advisors out there where they take a percentage of your portfolio. These are typically investment advisors, brokers. And what they do is, and this is honestly, in my opinion, where the misconception is kind of birthed, is because these people, because of how they make money, they're looking for people to start with like 20 grand, 25 grand.
Mhm.
Because their pay structure is they get paid once a year about 1% of your portfolio.
Mhm.
So if you start with zero, what's 1% of zero? Well, zero. So, that's typically where that happens. A lot of times you see the wealth advisors, that's where they make their money. That's how they get paid. They'll take a percent, maybe 1.5%, 2% if they're, in my opinion, kind of bad. And that's how they make their money. Insurance advisors like myself, we make commissions. And I know
Mhm.
commissions sometimes have that negative connotation to it. People think of car salesmen. It couldn't
Mhm.
be farther from the truth. We have to get paid somehow. I have to make a living, right? I can't just, just work for free all the time. And
Mhm.
I do a ton of pro bono work. I do a ton of meetings where I just lay out the education for someone and they don't start a retirement account. And you know what? I walk away and I sleep well at night, because at least I answered their questions. At least I laid out the education for them. But the way I get paid is I get paid by these companies that I'm contracted with. I'm not employed by them. I do not have quotas by them. I set goals for myself like everyone should,
Mhm.
but I do not work for them. I work for my clients, and I get paid by the companies to get in front of these clients.
Mhm.
So of course, when I decide, or not decide, when I work with the client to come up with a recommendation, and the client decides, you know what, this is right for me, this company is right for me, this product is right for me, then that company will pay me for using their product. And that's how I get paid. So I always explain to the client, rest assured, I know you don't want to pay me directly. You will never pay me directly, and money will never come out of your account to pay me, because that's not what it's for. So
Sometimes,
yeah.
yeah. Sometimes I get paid in oranges, or like from the tree
Donuts.
in the
Pan
donuts,
dulce.
pan dulce coffee. No, I'm glad you explained it the way you did, because it's like, here's one, here's two, here's three, and a lot of people don't know. I mean, and there are, a lot of our listeners are they're on the show because they're learning. So that means there's a need to learn, right? They're probably on YouTube, maybe even looking for this information. But even for us, I'm still like, man, I'm learning a lot today, because first of all, it's good to be, get the information again, because we've heard it at one point, but you got to
Right.
listen to it over and over. And two, it hopefully for the new year, right? People that are listening or that are listening later can set a goal for themselves. Maybe not, okay, like, don't set this unrealistic goal. Like, okay, I want to lose 80 pounds in a month. Yes, I would love to lose 80 pounds in a month, but it's little bites at a time. And like
Yeah.
you said, there's never
Or little bites you're not taking.
little what?
Little
Don't
bites you're
take
not taking.
Little bites that you're not taking. I thought you said
Take
something
little
else.
bites.
I
was a good
thought you
one.
said something else. But so I'm glad you explained it that way, because now because like when you were giving all those, I was specifically aligning myself into a category. I was like, oh, that would be really good for me, because I need that right now. Is like, boom, plan, and I need somebody to lay it out for me. So I think I would be a good fit for that. Well, maybe some of the listeners were like, well, I'm not there yet, so I might be a better fit for the middle person. I'm okay with a little bit of risk. Or you know what? I'm not even there yet. So for example, me and my wife are opposite. I'm the risk taker. She's not. Like we are far on ends of the spectrum. She's saving, and it's good because I'm glad she researches. She does everything. I'm more like, ooh, what's this NFT thing? Cool. Let me buy one. Oh, how much? Interesting. Maybe I'll make more money later. I don't know. She's like, did you read on it? Did you go to the website? Did you do that? I'm like, I didn't. So I'm glad you explained it like that, because people could naturally envision aligning themselves in one of those categories. And when you explain it like that, like A, B, C, people can have a better opportunity to make a good decision rather than like, what the heck do I do? So with that being said, because we only have about 10 minutes, is there anything else you think you should add before we end the show that you think the listeners should really need to really hear right now before we go over our goals for the new year?
I guess the last thing, and it's more of just reiterating the point that, don't be scared to ask the questions. It's not, I know it's so corny and cliche, but like there is no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to this.
Yeah.
You can ask whatever you want. And I just encourage with people, whether it's me or some other advisor that that's on your feed or you have some kind of relationship to, just ask the questions. Ask the questions, and you never know what kind of answer you'll get. You'll never know what kind of guidance that could help you down the road. But just take the 10 minutes, the 15 minutes, the 20 minutes, whatever it is, to just meet with someone, and get it started. And again, another cliche, and I'll just keep using a ton of them, but just like, what is it that people say, like the longest journey starts with like the single step or something like that. Like no matter how long the journey is, like just, you got to take that first step. And the first step is just asking the questions and meeting with somebody. Awesome. And that's what I would encourage them to do.
Well, great. That was awesome. We really, really appreciate you. Next time we'll have you in person, because I know we have a little bit more fun in person, but we really appreciate you giving this information. I think this is going to be one of our best shows where we've had like actual valued information that people can be like, whoa, okay, let me fast forward, rewind. Normally we're just shooting the, what, but
it's always fun.
But we try to get our goal. So I'll start. Okay, I'll start with one of my New Year's goals. Is one of my New Year's goals on the business side is we are going to be rolling out a new podcast specifically for more of the salespeople, customer service, those people in the industry. But for our listeners today on the Medicare Space Live, is to bring more people like you on the show. So that'll be our goal for 2021 on the business side, to make the Medicare Space more educational in the future, to still have fun, still laugh, but we want to bring people like you that are going to provide solid education that they're like, ooh, I didn't know that. And they can actually go leave the show and say, hey, did you know, Adriana, that 403B, that kind of stuff, where they could start being the teacher too. And that would be on the business side. On my personal side is more getting my health situated. I've ate a little too much tamales and pan dulce throughout the year, but being more intentional about my health, because I do want to live long. So drinking more water, probably laying off the quad shot coffees. Thank you, by the way, you bought us our coffee this morning. And that would be my personal goal. How about you, Sylvia? We're going to leave you last, Zach, so you can start thinking about it.
I really haven't thought about it. I hadn't made any plans.
You've had 5 minutes.
Yeah, you've had a whole 5 minutes to think about your whole life.
I guess I've got a couple of projects that I've been thinking about doing, and I need to implement them, and so get started on them.
What kind of projects, Sylvia?
Just personal projects, little business projects that I want to do and buy and stuff like that. And that I've been talking about it for the last year and a half, or maybe 2 years. So I really need to do it. Start the New Year's looking and planning, figuring out what I'm going to do, and just take better care of myself, being healthy, and, stop the donuts and the cookies,
the
tacos, and that's it. So I guess that's about it. And give you a call.
Yeah.
Set up an appointment with Mr. Zach.
She's going to set up an appointment. How about you, Adriana?
You're going to spam her, right?
Yeah.
Forget to do it.
And before we go on to Adriana real quick, before we leave, guys, if you're listening in and you're live with us, I see you guys there. Thank you so much. Put in the comments what your New Year's resolution is. Don't be shy. Just leave it there. It doesn't have to be a whole paragraph, just whatever, one word: health, wealth, money, whatever you want. Leave it in the comments. Let us know. All right, Adriana, what is your New Year's resolution for 2022 on the business and personal side?
So for business, I would say it's going to be networking, networking a lot more. So I believe myself to be a people person, but actually following through. So when somebody's like, kind of like Zach said, really holding their feet to the fire and being like, hey, you need this. Like, you need this. So let's do it. It's funny because I started my Instagram page, my agent page, aside, separate from my personal page. And it's been hard trying to figure out what to post. It's very difficult. So I will say I'm going to get better at that. Ask for more help.
Right.
Yes. And ask for the help of my daughter, because I've been asking her a lot. And it's funny because you think you know everything because you're older, and that's not the case. And so really humbling myself to ask for help. And on the younger side, I've asked Desiree for help as well. They know a lot more about posting for businesses and marketing than I do. And that's their expertise. So humbling myself for that. On my personal side, I would like to jump on the bandwagon as well for health and just staying consistent with my weight and keeping it off.
Well, you've been really good. I can see the difference. I didn't want to tell you because, like, you know, when you tell somebody, it's
and
like,
there it goes, guys. It's a fact.
but she's been really good. I seen the difference. I was like, dang.
It's hard. It comes off and then it comes right back on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it off this year.
That's very, very good. And how about you, Zach? What do you on business and personal?
Sure. So I'm gonna give 3. I'm gonna make it quick. I won't take too much time. So real quick, first the podcast. So with the podcast, I really want to get back to community events, donation drives. I was real good about that at the latter half of 2020 and early 2021, but towards the end, just got real busy, especially with the business, the financial services business, where I kind of strayed away from that. Now that I have help and I have co-host again, we're going to get back to doing. We're going to start up a coat drive, collaborating with Haven for Hope, the homeless shelter in San Antonio. We're going to do that at the start of the new year. On the business side of things, financial services, I really need to get better on the social media aspect. That also kind of took a nosedive towards the end of the year when I got busy. I just kind of I used to do my Tuesday tips, financial literacy Fridays, things like that. And I kind of just stopped doing it. I want to get back to doing that and just posting a lot more. Just like Adriana said, it's tough to really be that active and like, what content do I need to put out there? What's going to be helpful? But just getting back to that with my financial services, social media pages. On the personal side, I mean, obviously working out. I mean, but since the three of you basically use that, I'll say that I do need to do that, but I won't use that as my resolution. I think on the personal side, it's just spending more time with my family. And I was really good about that when the pandemic started, just kind of like going to visit my mom, checking up on her, going to visit my dad, checking up on him. But really even just my immediate, like my girlfriend here that I live with and our 2 dogs, and just taking them to the park, or maybe, setting up a date, things like that, just spending more time, because I've gotten so busy with the podcast and the business, and that I just kind of sometimes forget, to like set aside time and really get to that. So.
Yeah, I can definitely agree there. I really try to take the weekends now. Before I wouldn't. I'm like everywhere. But I'm like, no, the weekends are for me and my family. And my dog is probably more needy than anything. She's like, I'll be on the couch with my phone and she's like slapping the phone off my hand. I'm like, oh my God.
Hey, Mom, get off your phone.
So if I accidentally liked your Instagram post like 5 times, it definitely was not me. It was probably my dog. So well, I'm so glad that you came on the show and took your time out of your busy schedule, especially on, well, it's not Friday. It's kind of Friday, right?
It feels like a Friday.
It's New Year's Eve.
It's New Year's Eve. We're going to be off tomorrow. The office is going to be closed tomorrow.
It's the last show of the year.
Last show. Oh, the last show of the year, Zach.
See you next year.
All right. Well, where can people find you? They're like, man, I really like this Zach guy. He's so cool. I really vibe with him. Where can that's smart? I'm like, I get kind of jealous when Desiree and Brooke are like, yeah, we really like that Zach guy. I'm like, really? Really? I bet it's
I'm honored that they enjoyed my presence being there, and I do really enjoy building relationships and making those connections and networking. If you're looking for financial services information, or trying to meet with me, set up a meeting, you can look up my Twitter and my Facebook, Zach Espy Advisor. That's ZACHESPE, Zach Espy Advisor. You can also reach out to me. My email is z@espericueta@outlook.com. You can reach out to me that way. If you want to follow the podcast, we're available on all streaming networks, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can look up San Antonio Podcast Network, and we're on all social media platforms at SAPodnetwork.
Cool.
So, yeah,
Awesome.
encourage you to check it out.
Wonderful.
You've been awesome. I can't wait to have you in the live studio.
I can't wait.
It's so much fun. But we definitely appreciate you coming on. You've been a lot of help. I know that our listeners are probably like going like this because they probably learned something today. And we are, for our listeners, for those of you that are listening in, and I know we're coming up to like the 1 minute marker here. But we really want to appreciate and take time that for you guys for listening to us. Every time you like the show, share the show, comment. It really does help more people see it. Really good info, Lorenzo says. So we just want to be thankful to you guys. And the new year is going to be awesome. We have big things coming. And hey, Zach, let us know when you're in the community, because we as well are also going to be doing a lot more community events. So there's things that we could possibly collaborate on out there in the community to make a bigger impact. So we would love to do that with you if you'll have us. And
absolutely.
Is there anything else that you guys want to add?
No, thank you so much, Zach, for coming.
Yes,
today,
thank
being
you.
Part of our show, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yes. So guys, thank you so much. Again, join us at the Medicare Space Live. You can find us on all the social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, at the Medicare Space. Pretty easy, right? Adriana, Sylvia, Victoria, we're going to be coming to you live every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So just keep with us. We love providing this information. And guys, Happy New Year. Let's say Happy New Year.
Happy New
Year.
Year.
Woo! All right, guys. We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.